Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 385 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. The best kept secret in sports is any league, any team, any organization is not the most powerful thing. And what do I mean by that? People pay hard-earned money to see games, to go to games. They don't go to the game to see the team. They don't go to the game to see the owner. They don't go to the game to see the organization. They go to the game to see their favorite player or players. Players drive sports. Social media is at an all-time high, and this is a players-driven world as far as sports. When you look in the NBA, you have LeBron James, Steph Curry, the faces of the league. In NFL, they're a little slower to it, but you still have Patrick Mahomes. You have Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Players run the league. I'm not saying that you let players do whatever they want, but players run the league. So when you hear that Shohei Ohtani gets the largest contract in North American sports history at $700 million for 10 years, the initial thought is, God damn, $700 million is crazy. Like $700 million is astronomical. But you know what you don't think? You know what no one has ever thought? I don't think he's worth that much. Now, you can say nobody in the world is worth $700 million. That's obviously your point of view, and nothing wrong with that. But not one person said, Shohei Ohtani, mind you, think about this. Shohei Ohtani is still young. Yet, on the Angels, he hasn't won anything. Except maybe like an MVP. But no one is saying Shohei Ohtani does not deserve this $700 million. From the Dodgers. From the Dodgers. This is the age of innovation. This is the age of newness. There's always every contract is a record-setting contract. And while no, I don't think that someone in the NFL is ever going to get $700 million. Someone in the NBA probably isn't going to get $700 million. But when you look, almost every single contract you see is groundbreaking at this point. There's always a market setter. And while I don't think $700 million is a market setter, big money is getting thrown around like that. Look at Russell Wilson's contract. Look at Nikola Jokic's contract. Look at Patrick Mahomes' contract. While, yes, they don't amount to $700 million, they deserve the money that they're getting, minus maybe Russell Wilson. But the story isn't just Shohei Ohtani leaving the Angels to go to the Dodgers for $700 million, but Shohei Ohtani is deferring $680 million in the contract. What that means is that he will be paid a total of $680 million between 2034 and 2043. His first few years of the contract, he's only going to be making $2 million because he wants to be able to allow the organization, the Dodgers, to build a team around him in order to win. Which, let me tell you something. I'm not 100% sure if this is the first time this has happened. Actually, I'm almost certain this is not the first time this has happened. But I do think that this is the first time that this has happened with a star. Usually when you hear about a team deferring a contract, it's about a player that is retired, but they gave him a 10-year contract and he retired after like 2 years, and they have to stretch the money out so it doesn't really affect their books as much as it could. So you see people getting paid years upon years after they've played, which it helps financially the organization, and you still get the money the money that you agreed to get. But I don't know the contract. I mean, the conversation around this is, should this be banned? You're hearing the words competitive a competitive advantage that other teams don't have. We've known this for the longest, that there are markets that make more money than others, and that's in every sport. The Lakers make a lot more money than the Washington Wizards. That's just how it is. But I don't this is unprecedented, man. Seeing somebody this big, this popular, deferring their contract. I don't know how the Dodgers did it. I don't know how they're able to do it. But to me, if you look up 4, 5, 6 years from now, and maybe even if you look up at 10 years from now, and Shohei Ohtani doesn't have a World Series or has won World Series with the Dodgers, it has been a colossal failure. Seeing as the money that he's deferred, seeing the fact that right now you still have Freddie Freeman, you still have Mookie Betts on the team. Clayton Kershaw is pretty much at the end of his reign, but he's still on the team. And now you have undoubtedly the best player in baseball. And when it's all said and done, could go down as one of, if not the greatest baseball player of all time. That's how good Shohei Ohtani is. And you know that's how good he is, because they just don't give out $700 million contracts to anybody. Someone is looking at Shohei Ohtani and saying that the value that you're going to bring to this team, whether that's fanfare, whether that's popularity, whether that's championships, whether that's World Series, you're going to be worth $700 million. And to defer a contract like this is crazy. It's I don't really have the words to completely convey what's going on, but that's genius. I don't know how that's able to happen, but it is, and it's genius, you know. And now pretty much the ball is in the Dodgers' court to make a team, or to build a team, a good team around Shohei Ohtani, right? And honestly, right now they might have it. Because again, you have superstars on your team in Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, former MVPs, World Series champions. Man, shouts out to Shohei Ohtani, man, for having not only receiving this historic deal, but making it even more historic, like another level above, with deferring it until 2043. Now, and what's also fascinating about this is the contract is still worth 10 years. So what I'm saying is, in 10 years, like it's going to be backloaded. The first few years he's only making like $2 million a year. Then it gets bumped up to like $68 million. Like, that's crazy. And before we move on, I have to talk about the Angels. I don't want to kick the Angels back in as much as a lot of people have been doing. But I can't lie and say that it's not warranted if their back does, in fact, get kicked in. You see, there have been several big names that have come across or that has worn an Angels jersey. And we don't have to go through the long lineage, but the two names that I want to focus on is Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. You see, these aren't just two pretty good players. And I understand that baseball isn't like basketball. Basketball, you can have a generational player, and usually that player, not saying just him, but that player can get you as close to an NBA championship as possible. You might be able to get, if you just have that player and a lot of good role players, you might be able to get to the NBA finals. You might be able to get to the conference finals. What it is you're going to be viable because you have that player. Baseball is not like that. You have the whole team. You have a dugout. You need a lot to be successful in baseball. But one thing that you need for sure is a star player. If you look at every single World Series, they've had at least one star player. Or let me say this, World Series winner. They've had a star player, whether that's Craig Seager, you need a star player. Now, again, you don't just need a star player, but you do need that. The Los Angeles Angels is a prime example of how not to handle star players. And what's even worse about this is they didn't just have one crack at it. They had multiple cracks. You have two generational talents in Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. And not only have they not competed for a World Series, they haven't even been to the playoffs with those two. Now, I'm very open in saying that I don't give. At the end of the day, the players play. Football players, I don't give. Sometimes you can tell when it's coaching, sometimes you can't, And I don't like to bash a coach that doesn't deserve to be bashed. Or I don't like to bash an organization that doesn't like to be bashed. But I'm not even saying that you had to win a World Series. But what I'm saying is, at least when you have two generational talents, two at the same time, and I understand. Because a lot of people are going to say, because I'm probably going to cut this up into a reel, a lot of people are probably going to say, well, Mike Trout was hurt a lot of the time. I get that. You also had Albert Pujols. You also had Hamilton. Now we know what happened with him, but you've had players. And to not even make the playoffs with a player that we have said is arguably the greatest, or could go down as arguably the greatest baseball player of all time in Shohei Ohtani, and then you have somebody that could arguably go down as the greatest baseball player of all time in Mike Trout, and you don't even make the playoffs with both of them. Not only that, you get nothing for Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani leaves for free agency. When you talk about catastrophic blunders for organization, there's a lot that come to mind. Like the Hornets drafting Kobe and trading Kobe. Kobe Bryant. Catastrophic. Or the Houston Rockets having James Harden and Chris Paul, and James Harden and Dwight Howard, and not even making it to an NBA Finals. Now, I understand the Golden State Warriors were there, but or Let's go over to football. Or what's the catastrophe? Oh, when I forgot who the coach, or when they dismantled the Eagles. They dismantled the Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson Eagles. LaShawn McCoy, catastrophic. Now, ultimately, they came back and won a Super Bowl. But what I'm saying is this could be a historic, catastrophic move that could completely, I'm not going to say end an organization, but the Los Angeles Angels were already teetering on relevancy with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Now one of them is gone, and more than likely the other one will be leaving soon. And you have nothing to show for it. And I would be shocked if we look up a few years from now and the Dodgers do not have a World Series. And that's even with the Astros. That's even with the Braves. That's even with, the good teams that they have. I'd be shocked. If the Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani don't compete for a World Series. And the last thing I'm going to say is, what makes this trade or this acquisition different than the Juan Soto trade? So Juan Soto was traded to the Yankees. It was like a 7-player deal. And Juan Soto is widely considered one of the best young talents in baseball. And I'm looking solely at the organization. When you have an organization like the Yankees, and their organization is known for relevancy, their organization is known for box office. You've had Derek Jeter, you've had Manny Rivera, you've had those type of players. It's what some organizations do. Let me say it like this: what some organizations do is they try to hit big splashes, and they hope that splash will bring them back to where they used to be. For lack of a better term, it's kind of like what the Clippers did with James Harden. They hope that James Harden is going to revamp their championship hope. And I'm here to say that with Shohei Ohtani and the deal that he got and how he structured his contract is much more impactful, seeing as though he's better than Juan Soto. That's also one. But it's more impactful because, to me, Shohei Ohtani is at that point of his career where he can make an immediate difference. And, again, how he deferred his contract, you can now build a team around him. And, again, you also have Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. Shohei Ohtani, what has been, let's, how do I say this? What has been the Yankees' biggest problem? It hasn't been hitting, because you had Aaron Judge. Even though he never really plays, you have Giancarlo Stanton. It's been their inconsistency at pitching and their inconsistency with the bullpen. Well, let me ask you, does Juan Soto change that? No. This has been a crazy few days, few weeks in baseball, man. Baseball is going to look extremely different come next season. And honestly, it's really only because Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani, even though Juan Soto trade happened before Ohtani's, this is kind of like the domino. And when I say domino, now we're going to see what's going to happen with Mike Trout. We're going to see what happens with other free agents that could be game changers for teams that are just on the cusp. But the head honcho, the big joker, he's been moved, and that is Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers. So shouts out to him, and shouts out to the Dodgers. We have to be honest, and I said this multiple times, man. We have to be honest about what we're seeing. What we're seeing sometimes isn't illusion. A lot of times, most of the time, isn't illusion. It's literally what we're seeing. The statement that how do I approach this? So we're going to move on to football. And the statement is the Cowboys haven't beat anybody. The Cowboys have not beaten a team over 500 until Sunday, where the Cowboys beat the Eagles 33-13. Now, we're going to talk about the Eagles in a second. And as much as it pains me to say, I think that currently there is not a quarterback in this league that has been playing better. I'm not saying that it is better. That has been playing better than Dak Prescott this entire season. What was our criticisms of Dak Prescott? Well, he didn't perform in big games. He, I think, was either first or second last year in turnovers. And the Cowboys were famous for beating up on lesser opponents, but when they got to teams that they could see down the road in the playoffs, they would squander them and lose the games. Well, all the criticisms that we've seen, that we have, or I'll say this, all the criticisms that Dak Prescott has earned, he has corrected in a major way this year. He has one of the best touchdown to interception ratios. He's one of the highest QBRs, has one of the highest pass per game or yards per game totals. And as we currently sit, the Cowboys are 10-3. It's very hard right now for me. Damn, man, this is really tough to say as a Washington fan, but it's tough for me to see a weakness with this Cowboys team. Yeah, I may like the Tony Pollard, the running game, to be a little more efficient. But even with losing Trayvon Diggs, there is not much of a hole anywhere on this team. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that they're the best team in the NFC. But what I will say is they have earned their 10-3 record. And in my opinion, Dak Prescott has earned the right to call himself the MVP frontrunner. Because everything that doesn't get acknowledged a lot. The improvement. It does for some players, but a lot of players, the improvement doesn't get acknowledged as much as you hope it would. And rightfully so, we killed Dak Prescott last year for the imperfections that ultimately cost their team in big moments. Well, this year he has cleaned them up expeditiously to the point where it's very hard to see a weakness with this Cowboys team. Very hard. And I will go as far as to say that they are the second best team in the NFC right now. That's how good the Cowboys have been playing, and that's how good Dak Prescott has been playing. You finally have CeeDee Lamb looking like the caliber of wide receiver that he is. Brandon Cooks is there in big moments. Michael Gallup is still there. Tony Pollard, again, you would like for him to be a little more effective, but he's been good. And Mike McCarthy. We kill Mike McCarthy for his clock management at times. We kill Mike McCarthy for some of the decisions that he makes in clutch situations. Well, quiet as it's kept, Mike McCarthy has been one of the best coaches in football this year. One thing I will say is all the criticism from everywhere that the Cowboys received last year, they have improved on. Michael Parsons is one of the best defensive players. DeMarcus Lawrence has been great. Deron Bland has been one of the best secondary or corners in the league. I think he has the most pick sixes at 6, I think. There is not a position for the Cowboys that has not improved from last year. And as we sit here today, I think that Dak Prescott should be the front runner for the MVP right now. Even though, again, it sucks for me to say it, but what has Dak Prescott? Name another player or name another quarterback, because we're going to talk about a player in a second. Name another quarterback that has been as consistent this entire year as Dak Prescott been. You can't say Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy, we've seen what Brock Purdy looks like without without Deebo Samuels and without Trent Williams. Unfortunately, you can't. I think Lamar Jackson has been great, but Lamar Jackson doesn't have nearly the amount of touchdowns that Dak Prescott has. And I think that the Ravens as a team is better than the Cowboys as a team, but Dak Prescott has been playing better than Lamar Jackson. Can't say Patrick Mahomes. We're going to talk about him in a second. This is me just giving kudos, even though it sucks and my body's kind of hurting right now, seeing as though where my fandom lies. But this is me giving kudos to a team, to an organization, to a player that deserves it. Shouts out to the Cowboys. And for the Eagles, this is the case. This is a case where their record isn't indicative of how they've been playing. People have come to me and asked. I put out a video a couple episodes ago saying the Eagles might be the best team in the NFC, and I wasn't ready to say that yet. And I wasn't ready to say that, not just because at the time, they didn't play the 49ers and they didn't play the Cowboys. I didn't say that because, while yes, their record was good. Their record was great at the time. And their record still is good, don't get me wrong. But when we talk about championship teams, there are things that a championship team needs. And a lot of those things the Eagles struggle with, whether that's their offensive line has not been nearly as good as it was last year. Their Jalen Hurts has not been good as he was last year. Jalen Hurts is near the top of the league in interceptions and fumbles this year. The defense has been awful. The secondary, and that's even with big play Shea. And honestly, they have been getting gashed in the running game as well. And that's with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I'm not saying that the Eagles are terrible. But what I'm saying is, and one of the biggest things that I've questioned is, while yes, their record is who their record is, it doesn't tell the whole story. I needed to see what they look like against a top tier team. I know they played the Bills and beat the Bills, but there's levels to it. And right now, the Bills are not on the same level as the 49ers, are not on the same level as the Cowboys. The Eagles got destroyed, got dismembered by the 49ers. And pretty much the same thing happened with the Cowboys. You see, I said this. I said that you are the habits that you build in the regular season. The habits that you build in the regular season is very hard to change them mid-season because you're building up to them. And the habits that the Eagles have built this year are not championship habits. Again, every dominant position that we saw them have last year has considerably went down this year. Again, when you have players like Jason Kelce, who is a future Hall of Famer, who is one of their most important players, when you have him contemplating retirement, Lane Johnson is up there in age. It's just, I'm not saying that this Eagles team can't win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that this Eagles team can't make it to a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that this Eagles team is trash. But what I am saying is the same Eagles team that we've seen struggle week after week in the first half, the same Eagles team that we've seen struggle and Jalen Hurts has to put them on his back at times. That's the same Eagles team that played the 49ers and got destroyed, and that played the Cowboys that got destroyed. And like Shannon Sharp says, you don't limp into the season and then walk out. You don't get, your health doesn't improve through the season. So as I sit here today and I'm piggybacking off a video, off an episode that I did a couple weeks ago. The reason why I can't crown the Eagles as one of the best or as the best team or best two teams in the NFC is because they don't build winning. They haven't built this season. They haven't built winning habits consistently. And that can get away. You can get away with that playing the Commanders. You can get away with that playing the Bills at times. You can get away with that playing the Vikings. You can't do that when you're playing against talent that's looking dead in your face. Talent-wise, competitive-wise, you can't do that. And the 2 times that they've done that this year, 3 times, they won one, and that was the Chiefs, but we'll talk about the Chiefs in a second. And they lost to the 49ers badly, and the Cowboys. So unless something changes, which I don't know if it can, it's very hard for me to see the Eagles improve this year. Let's move forward. So I don't need to discuss the Kadarius Toney being offsides. We all saw it. It's clear as day. I will say that it did negate one of the greatest plays we've ever seen on a football field and one of the greatest impromptu plays we've ever seen. I don't need to talk about how. Well, first, let me say the Buffalo Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs 20-17. What I will talk about is what's really happening with Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City Chiefs team. Patrick Mahomes has come out and was very boisterous, or monstrous, let's say that, against the refs because they called Kadarius Toney being offsides, which ultimately negated the play, which negated a touchdown, and it lost them the game. Even though after that play, you still had 2 more shots at it. You just, it just, You ever, I'll bring it personal to you. You ever see change that you're not ready for? Or you've ever, how do I say this? You've ever had a car? At one point, it was your dream car. Riding smooth. Greatest car you've ever had. Best car you've ever had. Then all of a sudden, you start, that yellow check engine light comes on, and then nick after nick after nick, and then now it's just like, it's just a car. Patrick Mahomes' frustration towards the refs, towards, them calling that Kadarius Toney thing, that their frustration wasn't geared towards the refs. The frustration was geared towards realization. And the realization is what I said earlier this season. This Kansas City Chiefs team is not a championship caliber team. You have championship caliber players in Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. But this is not a championship caliber team, in my opinion. And I think Patrick Mahomes is starting to realize that. Because like we just talked about with the Eagles, there are components that a team needs to win a championship, to win a Super Bowl, to win a World Series. And the 2 biggest areas of concern for the Chiefs, and it's been like this the entire year, is their offensive line and the wide receiver play. For people that don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs lead the league in dropped passes. They're at like 33, which is almost double than the next person. If anybody doesn't know, Pro Football Focus ranks the Chiefs' offensive line one of the worst, especially their left tackle or their tackles. Patrick Mahomes, yes, there was some frustration towards the refs, not just for this game, but for the game against the Eagles, I believe, that it was a clear pass interference that wasn't called. Oh, no, it wasn't the Eagles. It was, don't remember who it was, but it was a clear pass interference. But the frustration is really, for Patrick Mahomes, is really the realization of, we're not as good as we should be. And when you look at the landscape of the AFC and you have like 6 teams that are 7-6, including now the Buffalo Bills that you just lost to, and you have losses to, the Jets, you have losses to the Broncos when they were struggling. Well, you're pretty much kicked off their win streak. You have losses to the Eagles because Valdez-Scantling can't catch the ball. Like, that has to be such a humbling and frustrating realization that while I'm still good, my team is not good enough. Like, think about it, man. The Chiefs, we've never talked about the Chiefs in this way, but the Chiefs now is that team where the offense has not been able to carry if the defense doesn't carry them. The kind of the same way we talked about the Browns for a minute. If the defense doesn't carry them, because their defense is still elite, they still have one of the best defenses in football. Well, if their defense isn't able to come to play or doesn't carry them, an offense that is led by Patrick Mahomes can't sustain and can't get them over the top. And Patrick Mahomes knows that. That's where you saw that frustration at. Because he looked wild arguing with the refs, talking about why would you call that? Patrick Mahomes isn't dumb. Patrick Mahomes knows that was offsides. I think what his frustration is how are you a wide receiver looking at the ball and still lining up offsides in a clutch moment? And that's another thing that Patrick Mahomes was voicing his frustration about. There has been so many moments where the wide receivers blow the game, whether that's Valdez-Scantling, whether that's Kadarius Toney. Again, they have 33 drops as a wide receiver core. It's tough. That's a tough thing, a tough pill to swallow, that you're not as good as you hope that you would be. And it's not because of you, it's because of the people around you. And Patrick Mahomes was being a great, shouts out to Ryan Clark. He said it. He was being a great teammate because, again, that frustration wasn't geared towards the refs, even though his words were geared towards the refs. The frustration was geared towards the fact of we can't keep playing. We can't keep shooting ourselves. And when you have drop balls, when you have offsides, when you have terrible false start penalties and tough situations, that's going to kill you. But shouts out to the Bills for beating the Kansas City Chiefs 20-17. It was a tough week for Sean McDermott and the Bills, but they prevailed. So shouts out to them. The question has been, why are people calling the Ravens one of, if not the best team in football? When if you look statistically, especially offensively, their offensive numbers don't blow you away. Yes, they're 10-3. They're number one in the AFC, but their numbers don't blow you away. So why are people calling the Ravens one of the best teams in football, if not the best team in football? And this is why I feel that this is the year. I'm not saying that they're going to win it all, but this is the year where the Ravens can find themselves in the Super Bowl. The Ravens have been historic in having a incredible. You know what the Ravens are? The Ravens have been Mike Tyson. The Ravens have been Mike Tyson. They have an you know what? No. You know what? Let's. The Ravens have been Deontay Wilder. They have an incredible first punch. They have an incredible knockout punch. But like Deontay Wilder for a majority of his career, what happens when you're unable to land that one-hitter quarter? What happens when you're unable, when you have to lean on your skill instead of your power and your strength? Well, for Deontay, it hasn't worked out too well for him. The Ravens have been a smash mouth team since their inception. They try to kill you on the defensive side of the ball, and they try to run the ball down your throat. That has been, you have Ray Rice. There's been so many examples of this. Even their Super Bowl team, both of them, they had an incredible running game and a historic defense. But one reason why we've never really had faith in the Ravens is they have not had their second win. when their first punch, when their defense doesn't come to play, when their running game isn't that good for that week, they have not been able to win those games because they didn't have a count. They didn't have a second punch. They didn't have a second skill. Well, this Ravens team can beat you in a myriad of ways. And we've seen it. The defense can be suffocating with Roquan Smith and Jadeveon Clowney, who's having one of his best careers as a pro. Well, the run game can kill you because you still have Lamar Jackson. You still have Gus Edwards. You have Mitchell. I forgot his first name. Keon, I think. Kenyon. Actually, I can look it up right here. Give me a second. I'm not going to disrespect his name. Keaton Mitchell. I apologize. But what's even better is now, if the run game isn't working, Lamar Jackson has improved enough that he can beat you with the pass, and you have the wide receivers. You have Odell Beckham Jr. You have Isaiah Likely, because a lot of people thought that it was going to be a death sentence that Mark Andrews was out for the rest of the season. Well, Isaiah Likely has played great. Zay Flowers has played great. Nelson Aguilar has played good. Rashad Bateman has played good. Gone are the days where you can beat the Ravens, or gone are the days where the Ravens can only beat you one way. And I think that is why this Ravens team is so feared. And not to mention, when you look at the AFC, what other team in the AFC has it all together right now? Oh, I mean, you could have said the Dolphins, but we'll talk about them and how they just lost. The Chiefs, we just talked about the Chiefs. Again, there's about 6 teams, I believe, that's 7-6. The Steelers, I think the Steelers are in the wild card right now, but we don't know what's going to happen with Kenny Pickett and this offense in general. This is the year, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if the Ravens are as good as the 49ers right now. I don't know if the Ravens are as good as the Cowboys right now. I don't know if the Ravens are as good as the Eagles right now, but I do know that this is the first Ravens team in recent memory, actually probably since the Flacco years, or the Flacco year, that they can beat you more than one way. When their first punch doesn't land, they have a counter. And then they have a counter after that. And that's not something we're used to. Lamar Jackson threw for 316 yards. And you're going against a Rams team that was on a good hot streak. Matthew Stafford was playing well. And honestly, this was a great game. If it wasn't, it went into overtime. The Ravens beat the Rams 37-31. This was a great game. And if it wasn't for the 4th punt return in NFL history in overtime to win the game, it could have probably been a different outcome. But this game, and why I loved, what was the best part about this game is there was certain times when every single unit had to step up, and they did. Whether that was the offensive line, whether that was the defensive line, whether that was the secondary, even though Marlon Humphreys got killed a couple times. But there was a couple times when the secondary played to perfection. Lamar Jackson had to dice him up the second. Like it was tough. Isaiah Likely had to be big. Like Odell Beckham Jr. had 97 yards. Isaiah Likely had 80. And you know what it is? Also, the Ravens don't care how they beat you. The Ravens kind of remind me, and I guess it's shout out to the brothers, but the Ravens kind of remind me of the Michigan Wolverines as far as they don't care how they beat you. And they don't care about style points. What they care about is we beat you. Same thing as Michigan. Michigan doesn't care if it's pretty or not. They just care that they win. So, shouts out to the Ravens for beating the Rams, man. Yo, it's crazy, bro. How, man. So the 49ers beat the Seahawks 28-16. And it's so crazy how the Seahawks started this season compared to where they are now. Where they are, the Seahawks were just a couple weeks ago, they were in contention to winning the NFC East. And as you look today, they're under 500. And the 49ers look as good as the 49ers look great, man. Brock Purdy threw for 368 yards. Christian McCaffrey rushed for 145 yards. Deebo Samuel had 149 yards. Brandon Ayuk had 126 yards. George Kittle had 76 yards and a touchdown. What the 49ers are starting to do is they're starting to completely bludgeon their opponents. Like, it doesn't matter who is in front of them. They are destroying them. Now, yes, Drew Lock did play. Geno Smith didn't play due to injury, but it doesn't matter. The 49ers they have hit their stride at the perfect time. The last thing you want to do is hit your stride early in the season like the Seahawks and it fizzle out like the Seahawks right now. And the 49ers don't have a weakness. Their weakness, honestly, is Brock Purdy. And that's the same person who is in MVP talks. Brock Purdy think their offensive line, you have Trent Williams. Wide receivers, again, you had two wide receivers that went over 125 yards. You have Christian McCaffrey, who is the best running back in the league right now. You have George Kittle, who is one of the best tight ends, probably the second or third best tight end in the league right now. The defense, you have Chase Young. You have Nick Bosa. You have Fred Warner. You have Dre Greenlaw. You have Ward. Oh, man. It gets a headache. I can understand. It's probably a headache trying to figure out how to stop this team. Because, boy, oh boy, let me tell you. I think I'm going to call it right now, and I'll probably close to this end of the season. But right now, I think that is going to be the 49ers and the Ravens seeing each other in the playoff and the Super Bowl. And that is going to be a hell of a game. And for the Seahawks, man, I'm looking at you, DK. Bruh, how many times do you have to get ejected for starting a fight with the other team, bruh? And you only do that. You always do that when you're up. When you're down. What are you doing, bruh? It's bad, bruh. It's bad. You look bad. Stop doing that. Just take the loss and keep it moving. You ain't got to keep trying to fight people, bro. You do this all the time. That's why people question your maturity, man. And that was a question coming out of Ole Miss, was his maturity. And we're starting to see why. But shouts out to the 49ers for beating the Seahawks 28-16. I am completely off the Lions Super Bowl contenders bandwagon. Completely off it. I'm not off it because they lost to the Bears 28-13. I'm off it because, kind of like the Seahawks, It seems like the Lions peaked in the beginning of the year, and now I'm not saying they're falling from grace because they're 9-4, but they're starting to unravel. And do they still have all the components that a championship caliber team has? Yes. But you can't keep their defense has been horrible these last few weeks. Like horrible. To the point where it overshadows everything that this team is doing. On top of that, against the Bears, a Bears team, by the way, that is not good. They have 5 now wins on the season. Jared Goff threw 161 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And a lot of those 50-50 balls that the Detroit Lions usually came down with the beginning of the season, they are not coming down with this year or right now. It looks bad, man. It looks bad, especially defensively. Defensively, they do not look good in the slightest. Oh, man. And I think what's even worse about that is not much has changed. Like, they didn't suffer a major injury. I think that they're still viable to be good in the game, but I can't really make them a Super Bowl contender right now, especially defensively, how they've been playing. And for the Bears, man, these are the flashes I was talking about when we talk about Justin Fields. These are the flashes. Justin Fields had 1 throwing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. When you unleash Justin Fields, he can win you games. And that's why I question. I'm not sure, but I think that they're probably still going to take Caleb Williams in the draft. But I don't know what you do if you were me, if I was the Bears, I would trade the number 1 overall pick and get a haul. Like get 2 first, 2 second, 2 third. Because people view Caleb Williams as that generational player. And if you have someone like Justin Fields, you just need to surround him with the right pieces. You need to surround him with a good offensive line. You need to surround him with you see what him and DJ Moore look like. Yeah, man. These are the flashes I'm talking about. As to why I would be conflicted as to just giving up on Justin Fields. Now, again, I do think if anything, I'll say this. If you're going to draft Caleb Williams, I think that you should trade Justin Fields, because what is he there for? Especially someone as young and as talented as he can be, and he is. Yeah, you can't. But I don't know. Shouts out to the Bears for beating the Lions, man. Ooh. It's unfortunate, man. So the Broncos continue to keep rolling, and they beat the Chargers 24-7. The biggest takeaway from this game is Justin Herbert is out for the rest of the year. Broke his finger again. I don't know if it's the same finger, but I think it was on his throwing arm this time. Broke his finger. And he had to have surgery, and they shut him down for the year. What a unfortunate way to end the season. Not only losing your quarterback, but losing your quarterback to a season that was supposed to be promising for the Chargers. And more than likely, your head coach is gonna be gone this offseason. It's tough. Austin Eckler probably is gonna be gone this offseason. And you're not anywhere closer to a championship. It needs to be studied. I might do that on this podcast, man. I might do that towards at the end of the season. Really study what went wrong with some teams. And one of the biggest teams and one of the poster child's teams for this has to be the Chargers. Did you look at all the hype and excitement that was around the Chargers this year or going into the season? compared to what it is now. Or compared to the fact of not only will you not make the playoffs, now you're out your quarterback and you're probably out your head coach as soon as the bell rings for the last game of the season. It's crazy, man. And shouts out to the Broncos too, man. I think they're on a 5 or 6 game. Or no, I think they were on a 5-game win streak before they lost to the Texans last game. They continue to roll, man. They're 7-6 for a team that looked as bad as they were in the beginning of the season. Shouts out to them for beating the Chargers, man, and shouts out for them for now being in the playoff hunt. Hey, I also want to say shout out to Joe Flacco, man. The dude was sitting on his couch just a couple weeks ago, and now he and the Browns are beating the Jaguars 31-27. He threw for 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He looked great, man. He was the main reason why they won this game. I know Trevor Lawrence was hurt with an ankle injury, but he played. So if he was out there, you're good enough to be out there, you're good enough to play. Shouts out to the Browns, man. Shouts out to Joe Flacco. That's a good story. Especially someone that wasn't ready to hang it up. He got another shot. That's what most quarterbacks that aren't ready to hang it up do or want, is another shot. He got one and he excelled. I'm not saying that he's going to be the quarterback of the future, but they at least have a viable option for the rest of the season. So shouts out to Joe Flacco, man. And this was this loss wasn't as devastating as it could have been, seeing as though we're going to talk about the Texans in a second. But this was a tough loss for the Jaguars, especially when you look up and the next game they have is the Ravens on Thursday or Sunday Night Football, I believe. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But shouts out to the Cleveland Browns, man. And shouts out to Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans for beating the Dolphins 28-27, man. I think so this was a doubleheader for Monday Night Football. This was a prime example why I am not there yet in crowning Tua an MVP candidate. Because you lose Tyreek Hill early in the game. And now I know he does come back for a couple plays in the fourth, I believe, but he just couldn't go. His ankle was hurting. You saw what Tua looked like with Tyreek Hill and without Tyreek Hill. And the Tennessee Titans did everything possible to give Tua this game. And to give the Dolphins this game, whether that was, I don't think I can't remember the last time I've seen so many false starts before for one team. The Tennessee Titans have to have the worst special teams in football. They had another special teams gaffe. They had Will Levis threw a pick six to a big man, to a defensive lineman. He fumbled the ball late in the game trying to pitch it to Derrick Henry. The biggest reason why it's hard for me to crown Tua as an MVP candidate is because the Tennessee Titans gave you this game. They gave you this game, and you still found a way to squander it away. And again, you saw how drastically different this team looked with and without Tyreek Hill. Now, again, I know Tyreek Hill came back, but still. Shouts out to Will Levis, man. Threw for 327 yards. He did his thing. But, yeah, man, it's hard for me to crown the Dolphins as a championship caliber team when you can't win these gimme games, honestly. So, yeah. the power of Tommy DeVito strikes again, man. The Giants beat the Packers 24-22. This loss honestly was on the Green Bay Packers defense. Jordan Love did everything he was supposed to do. Threw for 218 yards. Yeah, he had a couple overthrows, but that's just that's who he is this year. You force a fumble from Saquon Barkley late in the game, score on that, and the defense could not keep or couldn't get a stop when they needed a stop. So, shouts out to the Giants. Let me first say, I don't think that there should be a quarterback controversy between Tommy DeVito and what's the news? Daniel Jones when he comes back. One of them is making an absorbent amount more than the other. So, bada bing, bada boom. But shouts out to the Giants and shouts out to Tommy DeVito for beating the Packers 24-22. Hey, man. I'm going to talk about Joshua Dobbs a little later. But the statement is a boat is going to always find its level. Meaning you're always going to there's sometimes that you're riding a high, there's sometimes you're riding a low, but ultimately you're gonna level out, and when you level out, that's the type of person that you are. That's the team that you have. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Colts 34-14. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't think Jake Browning is this good. Let me say that. I'm giving all the credit in the world to Jake Browning. He has been great, but I don't think he's this good. Yes, I understand that you beat the Jaguars. Yes, I understand. You beat the Jaguars. You beat the Colts. Now, I don't know if he's this good. What I will say is, it is a luxury. And I'm not saying that this made Joe Burrow either, but it is a luxury when you have Joe Mixon surrounding you and Chase Brown and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. That's a luxury. Not everyone that's trying to find their level has that amount of talent around them. And you're going against a Colts team that has been horrific on the defensive side of the ball this entire year. So shouts out to the Cincinnati Bengals, man. They're winning the games they're supposed to win. Again, they're one of the, I think, 6 teams that's 7-6. Shouts out to y'all, man. And for the Colts, Gardner Minshew is also showing us why he is not a franchise quarterback, bro. Like he's good, don't get me wrong, but he's not the type of quarterback to get you over the top. And he, to me, is a glorified backup. I understand that he is starting because Anthony Richardson is hurt, but still, man, it's tough. But shouts out to the Bengals. Yo, the NFC South is, I'm sure that this isn't the first year that every team has been bad in division, but yo, the NFC South is trash, bro. Like, every single team in the NFC South is below 500. The Saints beat the Panthers 28-6. The Panthers lost to a team that has been struggling offensively all year. Their quarterback has dealt with every injury in the book this year, and they're dealing with they lost to a team that didn't even eclipse, I'm not mistaken, didn't even eclipse 400 yards. Like, people talk about Bryce Young, and people talk about, they compare Bryce Young to CJ Stroud, and they wonder how one is not like the other, right? Well, my question is this: name a good unit for the Cincinnati Bengals. For the Carolina Panthers. There's not a good. They have a good player or two. There's not a good unit. Their defensive line's trash. Their offensive line's trash. Their secondary's trash. Their wide receiver core's trash. Their running backs are inconsistent. And their coaching staff obviously ain't good. There's not a good unit. So how do you expect someone to grow from that? That's the issue that I've had with the Bears and Justin Fields for the longest. It's like you expect someone to grow, you expect someone to flourish when nothing around them is good. I don't understand how people expect Bryce Young to improve when this is what he's surrounded by. It's crazy. But shouts out to the Saints for beating the Panthers. Oh, again, the NFC. I'm not even gonna. The NFC South is trash, bro. The shouts out to the Buccaneers for beating the Falcons 29-25. This is yet another game where Desmond Ridder threw a costly interception to end the game. Yet another game where Bijan Robinson is struggling to get touches. He only had 10 touches. I'm not going to subject myself to talk about the NFC South so much, so shouts out to them. This was a bad loss, man. The Texans lost to the Jets 30-6. Now, the Texans have been chasing the Jaguars for the AFC South title, and this would have been a huge step forward because seeing as though the Jaguars lost, but you lost to a team. The Texans lost to a team in the Jets that have fumbled their quarterback position this entire year. Zach Wilson didn't even want to play, and he threw 300 yards, had one of the best games he's had. This was a bad loss. And on top of that, C.J. Stroud went out with a concussion. And if this goes how every other concussion is gone, I don't think he's going to be playing next game against the Titans, I think. So this was just a bad loss, man, a terrible loss, especially when we talk about their pursuit not only to make the playoffs but to win their division. That's costly. But shouts out to the Jets for beating the Texans. And the saying, like I said, is a boat is always going to find its level. You know, when Joshua Dobbs stepped on the scene for the Minnesota Vikings and he set the world ablaze, people was like, yo, why is this guy bounced around 5, 6, 7, 8 teams? Like, why is he not a starter? And that's why a lot of people are like, hold on, you'll see. The Minnesota Vikings beat the Raiders 3-0, which was one of the lowest scoring overtime games in NFL history. Joshua Dobbs was so bad. He played, I think, until halfway through the third or towards the end of the third quarter and only had 63 points. We talked about Jake Browning. Well, you have TJ Hawkinson. You have Jordan Addison. Justin Jefferson, Joshua Dobbs threw a kill ball or a dead man ball. That's the ball where you threw it and your receiver is going to get drilled. He threw it in the middle of the field high, so Justin Jefferson had to jump. He got drilled, out for the game, had to go to the hospital. His chest, Joshua Dobbs is not good. And for the people, it's like, there's a quarterback controversy between him and Kirk Cousins. No, it is not. The Vikings are praying to their lucky stars that Kirk Cousins comes back the start of next season, because boy, unless they make a trade. Joshua Dobbs not good, bro. He got benched for Nick Mullins, bro. And on top of that, on the Raiders side, Aiden McConnell ain't good neither. The Raiders suck. The Raiders aren't good. Like they have good players. Like you have Josh Jacobs, you have Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, you have Max Crosby, but this team's not good. And I'm not gonna put it on Antonio Pierce because he didn't even know he was gonna be a coach to start the season. But yeah, bro. And unfortunately, I don't know if he's gonna keep his job because the Raiders are gonna look at it as like, well, what did you do? What am I supposed to do with this roster? It's bad. But shouts out to the Minnesota Vikings for beating the Raiders. Let's move over to basketball. I understand the Lakers fans' frustration. I truly, truly do. I understand where the frustration comes from. I understand. So the Lakers won the inaugural in-season tournament. And in the championship, the in-season championship, Anthony Davis had like 40 and 20. Anthony Davis was leaps and bounds the best player on the floor. And LeBron James continues to just take father time behind the woodshed and keep beating on him. Like, I don't understand how LeBron James is still this good this late in his career, but shouts out to him. But I understand where the frustration is. If this is the Lakers team that we're going to be getting for the rest of this season, not only is this Lakers team a championship caliber team, they should be the championship favorites. The issue is, we know this is not the Lakers team that you're going to be getting the entire year. Anthony Davis in the in-season tournament championship, that is why, that performance is why we're so frustrated with Anthony Davis at times. He was the best player. I'll say this. If Anthony Davis plays like he did in the championship, the in-season championship, if he plays like that the entire season, not only is he a top 10 player, he is the best player in the world. That Anthony Davis is the best player in the world. Yes, better than Nikola Jokic, better than Giannis Antetokounmpo, better than Joel Embiid, better than Kevin Durant, better than LeBron James, better than Luka Doncic, better than Steph Curry, better than Jason Tatum. That Anthony Davis is the best player in the world. And that is where the frustration comes from. Because we don't see that Anthony Davis all the time. His consistent is being inconsistent. Because that, and also know this, the Lakers are not winning a championship if they don't get that Anthony Davis. It doesn't matter what LeBron James is doing. If they don't get that Anthony Davis, they're not winning a championship. And I think that's the frustration, because Lakers fans have seen they haven't got that consistently, especially in big moments. I'm not going to harp on them, but that is the Anthony Davis that they need to win a championship, for sure. And shouts out to the Lakers for winning the inaugural in-season tournament. So now I'm going to get to the unpopular topic of the day. The topic since the in-season tournament has been about Zion Williamson's weight. And the fact that, as an overweight person myself, I can see overweight, and he, for damn sure, is overweight. My question to Zion Williamson is, what do you want your career to go like? Every player has a ceiling. LeBron James has reached his ceiling. However, LeBron James' ceiling is arguably greatest player of all time. Steph Curry has reached his ceiling. However, his ceiling is 4-time champion, maybe 5-time champion if he wins another one, but greatest shooter of all time. Arguably greatest point guard of all time. Obviously, people's ceilings are different, but every player has a ceiling. Right now, Zion Williamson's ceiling is here. I think that Zion Williamson will never play, if he does not get his weight together, he will never play better than what he's playing right now. Now, I will acknowledge that right now he is a good player. He just scored 36 against a team. I forgot who it was, but this Zion Williamson is good. I'm not going to take that away from him. This Zion Williamson is good. But it goes back to, what do you want your ceiling? This Zion Williamson is a top 50, 25 player in the league right now. So if that's what you want, If that's what you want to continue to be, because I don't think with Zion Williamson's weight being where it is, I don't think that he will get much better than this. Now, if he gets his weight under control, Zion Williamson, in my opinion, has the ability. He has skill sets that we've never seen in a player. People talk about how Victor Wembanyama is a once in a generational player, or LeBron James, arguably the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan. Well, Zion Williamson has attributes that we've never seen from LeBron, we've never seen from Jordan, Steph Curry, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe, none of them. Now, I'm not saying that Zion Williamson would be the greatest player of all time. But what I'm saying is, if he gets his weight under control, which he has not been able to do since Duke, Zion Williamson has a chance to be in that conversation as one of the greatest players ever, because he has skill sets that we have never seen. And then once he loses weight, if he loses weight, because that's a personal decision, he will unlock more and they would be even better. Stephen A. Smith has gone hard at him or on his weight, pause. So has Shaq, so is Charles Barkley. And I think that they are doing that because they see the potential that Zion Williamson brings and how good he can be. He just hasn't been that good. I mean, he hasn't been consistent in that way. So my question to Zion is, what do you want your ceiling to be? Because right now, I think you're at your ceiling. Now, it's good. You're still a great player. But if you want your ceiling to be one of the greatest players, you have to get your weight under control. Have to. I look at it like this. A player that we talk about a lot is, Michael Jordan. Well, a player that should have been as good as Michael Jordan, had all the skills, all the attributes as good as Michael Jordan, that we never talk about this in the same breath as Michael Jordan? Vince Carter. And I'm not saying Vince Carter's weight was a problem, but Vince Carter got comfortable at where he was. Vince Carter was supremely talented, but he got comfortable at where he was. And with Vince Carter being comfortable, what happened? He plateaued. He hit his ceiling. His ceiling was high. His ceiling was high as hell, but he hit his ceiling. And he never improved. He never did things to increase his ceiling to the point where now you start getting older in your career and the injuries start coming. Zion Williamson has a shot to elevate his ceiling to exponential heights. He just has to get his weight under control. That has to be something that he wants to do. If he doesn't, then he might be Vince Carter. Your ceiling is here, a very high ceiling, but we should have been talking about Vince in a much better light than, I'm not saying negative light, but in a much higher regard than we usually do. Why is that? And there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to wherever you're listening. I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get as many subscribers on YouTube as possible. I'm trying to get as many subscribers everywhere as possible. So that means if you're listening on Spotify, please subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Music, please subscribe. If you're listening on Pandora or whatever, if you're watching the content on YouTube, please subscribe. It definitely means a lot to me. Also, please follow the socials. Follow Instagram. Follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily, and those are the places where you can connect with me the fastest. Just keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth. I don't mind debating, but if you keep it respectful, we can have a conversation. And I appreciate you guys. Until next time, much love.